Hey, this is Jay, and today I'll be going over the Nefarian encounter in 10-man Blackwing Descent. The Nefarian encounter is a three-phase fight. The first phase begins with an Ixia on the ground, Nefarian in the air, and starts as soon as you jump down. Just to quickly show you our positioning, we had an Ixia in the blue box, Nefarian in the green box, and the ads being kited in the white box. You will want to have the dragons facing towards the entrance of the raid and have your ranged in the middle somewhere. For the first 30 or so seconds of the encounter, you won't have to worry about Nefarian, as he'll be in the air casting one of his abilities. You should use this time to position an Ixia. We chose the left side, however the right side is equally viable. The ability that Nefarian will be using during this time is called Hail of Bones. He shoots a projectile at the ground, and when it lands, it spawns an ad. The location that it will impact is marked by a purple swirl on the ground. 6 ads will spawn during this time, and we found the easiest way to deal with them was to kite them through the middle of the room. We used a Frost Mage for this, but you can also use a Hunter or a DK with Chill Blades quite easily. Other than that, you'll probably need to have a couple of people doing this. The person kiting the ads should be mindful of their energy bar. When this bar reaches 0, the ads will fall over and die. Try to have the ads die in a group at the back of the room, as this will help immensely in phase 3. Be sure to avoid the breath of either dragon, as this will cause the energy bar to reset completely. After the 6th cast of the ability, Nefarian will move to the middle of the room and drop down. You want to have your other tank pick him up and move him to the opposite side of the room as an Ixia. When the dragons are less than 60 yards apart, they gain the Children of Deathwing buff, causing them to attack 100% faster, so make sure they're more than 60 yards apart. Regularly throughout the fight, both dragons will cast Shadow Flame Breath. This inflicts 35,000 shadow damage to enemies in a cone, and also resurrects or resets the energy bar of the animated bone warriors that spawn from Hail of Bones. Both dragons also have a Tail Lash. This ability hits everyone behind them for 15 to 20,000 damage and stuns for 2 seconds. Nixia's last ability is called Electric Discharge. Regularly throughout the fight, you will see Nixia's sides start glowing. When this happens, have your tank turn an Ixia so that she faces away from the middle. After about 5 seconds, lightning will start to arc out from her sides and hit anyone not in front or behind her. Note that your raid will get Tail Lash, but the damage from that is considerably small when compared to Electric Discharge. It is a good idea to call this out so that your kiter and healers know they are about to get stunned. The final ability in phase 1 carries through the entire fight. Every time Nefarian loses 10% health, he casts Electrocute. The damage is preceded by an emote that flashes on the screen saying, "The air crackles with electricity." A second or two later, the entire raid will take 100,000 damage. It is a good idea to have at least a minor cooldown on a tank, as this ability cast at the same time as a breath is a very large amount of damage. This mechanic is not too difficult when timed well, and completely disastrous when not. The limiting factor when DPSing Nefarian in this phase is the final mechanic of an Ixia. Throughout the fight, an Ixia will stack a resource called Lightning Charge. When this reaches 100, an Ixia blows up and kills your entire raid. The charge passively builds up over time, moving slower the more damage an Ixia is taking. When Nefarian casts Electrocute, there will be a large jump in the Lightning Charge level. The way we deal with this in phase 1 is to have all our casters double dot the dragons and focus Nefarian down for 20%, then switch to and kill an Ixia before she reaches full. It is possible to get a 3rd Electrocute in this phase if you kill an Ixia and push Nefarian past 70% at the same time. We did not choose to do this, however, as the damage in the phase transition often killed a person or 2. Phase 1 ends when an Ixia dies. When phase 1 ends, Nefarian will move to the middle of the room and fly into the air. Immediately after this, the platform will lower and the lava will start to move up. The only place to stand in this phase is on the 3 pillars around the room, and for this reason you want to have your raid separated into 3 groups. Each group should have a healer and an interrupt. I find that getting onto the platforms is easiest when you wait for the lava to stop moving and then jump on. As soon as the lava reaches its maximum level, a chromatic prototype will drop down and almost immediately start casting Blast Nova. This ability must be interrupted every time. A single interrupter will be able to handle this on 10 men. Through this entire phase, Nefarian will cast Shadow Flame Barrage, causing a significant amount of damage. Using Light Well as a DPS while on the platforms in this phase is extremely useful. As with the rest of the encounter, Nefarian will still cast Electrocute every 10% while in this phase. Many strategies suggest pushing at least 2 Electrocutes in this phase. However, the amount of Electrocutes you need is largely dependent on the quality of your DPS and kiting in phase 3 and your healing in this phase. we decided not to do any electrocutes in Phase 2 so that we could practice doing Phase 3 and ended up killing Nef, so do however many work for your raid. Phase 2 will end when all 3 chromatic prototypes are dead. Phase 3 begins, Nefarian will once again become grounded and will remain there for the remainder of the fight. He will stop casting Shadow Flame Barrage and resume with his Breath and Tail Lash. In addition to these abilities, he also has another ability called Shadow Blaze Spark. There are other ways to position this fight, but we chose to keep Nef in the middle. Have the tank on Nef always have Nef positioned with one of his sides facing the adds to avoid Tail Lash stuns and breath resets. The raid will have to move with the tank, however it is rather slow and still easy to do solid DPS. If the tank or the DPS find themselves standing in fire, they will have to move through Nef to get out of it, as turning the boss faster or slower is usually not an option. If you are tanking and moving through the boss, be careful to not breath the adds, as you will likely cause a wipe. Shadow Blaze Spark is cast at a random animated bone warrior. When the spark lands, it creates a pink patch of fire on the ground that follows players. This fire created causes considerable damage and also resets the adds, refreshes their energy, and removes all debuffs on them. For this phase, we had our other tank pick up the adds and gave him a dedicated healer. You will still want to kite the adds even with a tank doing it, however, as you will want the adds to reset as soon as possible after they become active again. Try to keep the adds as close to the patch of fire as you can without them getting hit, as this will maximize your space. Shadow Blaze Spark is cast more frequently the longer this phase goes on, and so eventually you will run out of room. The final thing to worry about in this phase is once again electrocute. Try to always have a cooldown on a tank when it goes off and you'll be fine. It may seem like a lot of damage due to the boss, however the phase moves rather quickly and you'll be standing over a dead dragon in no time. As a side note, the resistance trinket from Toll Broad is an extremely useful trinket for tanks in this fight especially. I just happen to be really lazy and don't have it yet. That's all for Nefarian on 10 men. I hope this helped, and if you have any comments, leave them in the comments. Also questions. Questions are good too, you can leave those in the comments also.